Hello and welcome to this overview of your online class at Lake Tahoe Community College, and this is specifically focusing on getting started in the first week of classes. Now, in the first week of class, in any class, you certainly might have some apprehension about what to expect from the class, the grading, the format, some of the assignments and the readings. In an online class, I think added to that, you have that uncertainty of the fact that we don't meet face-to-face. As much as possible, I'll try to offer videos like this video to give you more of an interactive focus, but quite obviously we can't have 100% synchronous interactive classes. So with that in mind, I created this video to help you with any fears and apprehension you might have in your first week of your online class. Now, I teach a number of sociology and anthropology classes here at Lake Tahoe Community College, so don't get too caught up in the fact that some of the assignments you see here are not exactly the same as those that you'll find in your online class. Pretty much all of my online classes are structured the same way, and I want to take you through this to give you a sense in the first week of what to expect, what to focus on, and how to ease some of that fear you might have about your first online class. If this is truly your first online class or first in the Canvas format which we use, then I think this video will be particularly helpful. If you've had another class with me and if you've had other classes with other instructors using the Canvas format, this may not be as important, but I still recommend you take a look at it because, of course, even though all instructors at the college use Canvas, we all implement the Canvas course management CMS system in different ways. So let me take you through then some of the highlights of what to expect in your online class. Quite obviously, when you first start your online class, you'll see something like this depending on how many classes you're enrolled in. So obviously you would click to choose your specific class. But beyond that, let me recommend a few things to take a look at here. Okay, first off, the most important thing to do the first week is to definitely read over the course syllabus. Reading over the course syllabus, you're going to know everything you need to know in the class, because the way I've structured this is everything that you need is laid out for you on the syllabus. You can get to the syllabus either by just clicking on the home page. I've chosen the course syllabus as your home page, or you could click on the link here on the side, syllabus. When you scroll down through the syllabus, you'll discover quite a bit of useful information. First off, the book that you need to order. So whatever class you're taking with me, order that book. I'll always give you the ISBN for that book. Also give you a picture so that you have a sense of what it looks like. You can always get your textbook at the college bookstore. If you don't live locally, of course, you could get it from any of the number of online retailers out there, including Amazon.com. Sometimes they will have a book for much cheaper, particularly if it's a used copy, and I try to use older editions of books in my classes to give you some benefit in terms of the cost, because I realize that textbooks can be quite expensive. One thing I will mention is you should try to have your book ordered if you're watching this video prior to the first week of class. If you order in the first week of class and it doesn't arrive until the end of that week or even into week 2, I'm not giving any makeups for late material. It's your responsibility to get the book. If you don't have that, you might ask, what can I do for my discussion post for week 1 if the book's coming late? I recommend you try to do as much as you can. In some cases, I'll have course objectives posted. You can generally post a few things based on just the information that you have, the context that I've given you. But you really do need the textbook, so that is probably the top priority, is order that textbook. If you have to do expedited shipping, do that. If you do order a used copy from Amazon, you can check the location, and that's very key if you're trying to get a book quickly. If you live on the West Coast and you're taking my class and you want that book quickly, maybe don't order it from New York, the East Coast, or even the Midwest. Try to focus on a West Coast vendor. Shipping times vary a lot, so just make sure you get the book as soon as you can. So that is found in the syllabus. Just scroll down and you'll locate that information. What are some other things you'll discover on the syllabus and why should you read it? Well, it'll have your discussion post dates. It'll tell you exactly what day you need to have your discussions posted by, and typically that will be 5 o'clock in all my classes. It's just going to vary as far as whether it's going to be due on a Thursday, Friday, or typically Saturday. So be sure to check the syllabus to see the exact date in which that is going to be due. The other thing you're going to see that's very key on the syllabus, you scroll down a little bit more, you'll go for the reading, look for the readings tab, or subheading, and you'll see for each week in the quarter what readings you need to do. So it'll say week 1, complete chapters 1 and 2. I don't give you the dates on the weeks for the class, but quite obviously when you start the class, that first full week will be week 1, and then you can go through the quarter and figure out those particular dates. The other way you'll know that is if you go to your discussion modules, it will always have a due date, and you can see like that'll be the end of that particular week, whether it's week 1 or 2. Scroll down further and you'll note information about the exams. So it will tell you what the exams cover as far as which chapters. It will tell you the types of questions, typically multiple choice questions. It will tell you the total number of points, and also it will say how long the exams will be open. And this is very key. Once you begin your exam in the class, the clock starts. And very typically you'll have at least, let's say at least 24 hours, which is enough time. These are open book exams. But it's really key, don't start the exams until you're ready. I don't really give you any sort of review sheet, and the reason for that is I'm expecting you to read every week in the class to prepare for your discussion posts. You can certainly take notes on a piece of paper, you could highlight in your book and so forth. If you do that, I feel like you'll do a better job on the exams. Since they're open book and each of the questions are organized by chapter, I think you should have no difficulty completing these exams, but I do recommend that you read ahead and follow along with your discussions so that you can do better on the exams when they do come up. And I should say that most of my classes will have a midterm and a final. If you're taking a 6 or 11-week class, that will obviously fall at midterm time in the middle for exam 1, and then the final is always at the end for the second exam. These are not comprehensive exams. They cover the chapters listed here on the syllabus. Okay, the other thing you'll see on your syllabus is your grade distribution. It will tell you your discussion posts, including how many you have to post per week, how many words there are, and the points for each week of discussions, and then the total points, and then the same thing for the exams. And then below that, at the bottom, under the subheading of grading, you will see your total grade in the class. It's always based on a 90, 80, 70, 60 scale, with 90 being A, 80 being B, 70 C, and so forth. And the points are listed here. The points may vary in your class, but very typically I'll have a 700-point scale, which is very easy to figure out, meaning that every 70 points is a letter grade. The other thing you can do is go to your grade book on Canvas and keep track of your grades. It's an excellent way to know your progress in the class and to see how you're doing. So I really recommend that you stay proactive and check your grade throughout the quarter in the class. And that's one thing I will say you have to do in an online class, is be very proactive and independently paced. I'm not going to be emailing every student and saying, hey, your discussions are due this week, or make sure you get that exam. And I'll mention this later, there are no lates in the class accepted, so you really do have to know all your due dates. And that actually is my next point here of the things to do in the first week. I don't have my iPad with me or my calendar, but I really recommend that you focus on what the due dates are in your class and commit those, not just to memory, but write them down somewhere. Take out your calendar, write down the 2 exam due dates, when those are. Take out a calendar, and for every week, if your discussions are due at 5 p.m. on Friday, write down 5 p.m. every Friday, discussions due, discussions due. This may sound redundant, but it's really important, because if you miss the deadlines in an online class, there are no makeups, and that's really key. I'll probably state this 20 times throughout this video, because so typically I have students emailing me saying my computer died, or I didn't have internet access, I was traveling. It doesn't matter. I'm not giving you makeup, so the key is to know the due dates. One of the goals of an online class is to see whether or not you can be self-paced and focus on getting the work in on time. That's one of the big things we do in an online class, as opposed to an in-person class where I'm continually reminding students, hey, an exam is coming up and so forth. Well, let's get back to then, how do you know what the due dates are? Well, there are quite a few places to look. First off, click on your modules. When you click on the modules, that will show you a progression through week 1 through the end of the quarter, and it will show you if something is coming up, such as a discussion due date or an exam due date. Secondly, you could also click on assignments, and then thirdly, you could click on discussions. And what I would mention here is that there's, oh, and I'm sorry, you can also click on quizzes and the syllabus. And I was jumping ahead of myself, but what I wanted to say is there is a degree of redundancy to this. So the idea is that you can check due dates on multiple places in the class. Again, the first place is probably your syllabus, as we just looked at, so go to your syllabus, scroll down, find some due dates. You can click on the various assignments. You'll actually find your exams under the quizzes tab, which is a little counterintuitive, but look under quizzes, and of course your discussions. There's redundancy, so you'll see a due date here and a due date here for the same assignment. So just be sure to know all the due dates for the class. What I recommend is when you go through that syllabus, you'll see your total points and you see exactly what you have to complete in the class. Typically that will be a series of discussion posts for the week and then the 2 exams. So be sure to check that out in week 1. Now I just talked about this, but it's good to reiterate this. You'll find on the class website and announcements and a number of other places, policy 1.1, and let me just read this just to be sure we're all on the same page here. So examinations, assignments, and any and all classwork may not be made up for credit under any circumstance, with the exception of a verified doctor's note. Any other reasons for a makeup for work in the class, including but not limited to missed rides, weather, oversleeping, computer technology problems, vacations, flights and travel, work commitments, will not be considered legitimate reasons to make up work in the class. Please do not ask me to make exceptions to this policy. I will not discuss any of the reasons with you, as I will simply refer you to this policy 1.1. This sounds harsh, but basically what I'm saying is there are no makeups. So do not ask me for makeups. If you ask me again, I'm just going to say, you know the policy. That's it. I don't care if the computer exploded. I don't care if something catastrophic happened. There aren't going to be makeups, okay? Because I can't check every person's excuse in the class, and it's really not fair to other students in the class. Now, there is one exception, and I mention it here. If you have a verified doctor's note, if you have something like that, send me a scan of that, and then I can give you a makeup, because that's something that is beyond your control. But technology issues, not having good Wi-Fi access, and this happens a lot. Someone will wait till the 11th hour, so 4:45 p.m. on the day that the discussions are due, let's say at 5 p.m. And then they, miss half the discussion posts, they only post half of those, whatever. And then I'll typically get an email and someone will say, my Wi-Fi went out, or I was in an internet cafe, I waited till the last minute. Well, right there is your reason. Right there, the reason is you waited till the last minute. So again, no makeups. I'm not going to say it again, but I really want to emphasize this because it comes up so many times in an online class. And I know some instructors might give you makeups, but that's totally irrelevant. These are the rules of my class. You follow the rules. If they don't fit, if you think, I'm not going to be able to do this and I need more flexibility, then take a different class is what I would say. So I hope we're clear on that. Okay, now a second thing to look at here relative to our policies is the plagiarism policy. In the past, I've had some plagiarism issues in online classes. Plagiarism is defined very clearly in the Lake Tahoe Community College catalog. We've also defined here dishonesty, so that would include cheating on examinations. Even though we don't meet in person and I can't proctor your exams, you cannot work together on exams. If you have a friend in the class, you need to work separately. You could study together and quiz one another, but you can't work collectively in the exams. And I should state that I've written hundreds of questions for any of these exams, and even if you did work with someone, you're going to get a different selection of questions for your exam, so it really doesn't make sense. I also wouldn't recommend looking online on any of these websites that have certain quiz questions up there. It might have a few questions from our exams, but that's really not going to help you holistically in terms of learning the material for the class. So study on your own certainly and keep up with your readings. Second thing about plagiarism is that it's very clear here, but it's important to go over this. Using another's language, work, ideas, or original material without giving proper credit to the original source, whether done accidentally or on purpose. That's defined as plagiarism. Now, if you have any questions, be sure to email me and ask me because it's very important. But you cannot go to Wikipedia, cut and paste information from there, and then put that in your discussion post. 100% of your work in this class must be original work. That means you paraphrase, you retype, you think about it, you synthesize it, you put it in your own words. That's the key to taking an online class with me. It's not regurgitating something from the internet or even from the textbook. I don't recommend you directly quote from any sources because I want to hear your words and your ideas about the particular topic. So this is really key, and I hope that we understand this. If you have any questions in class, let me know. If I suspect someone for plagiarism, I will take your discussion post. It takes me like 30 seconds. I put it through turnitin.com. It comes up. If I see a really high level of match on your words, I will check that out. And of course, plagiarism not only means potentially a 0 for that week's work, but it can mean expulsion from the college. And it's a really, really big deal. It's not just something that we look at in academia, but throughout our society in terms of people plagiarizing sources or plagiarizing information and not attributing the sources. So 100% original work in the class is key. Okay, now the other thing you should do in the first week of class is to go through the entirety of the Canvas site. So the first thing you should do after you read the syllabus is just start clicking on things. Click on the announcements, click on your assignments, the people you can see who's in the class, the various pages. There aren't that many things to click on, but you should do that just so you have some familiarity with the class. When you do that, you'll probably come across your discussions, and again, your discussions can be found on the Discussions tab. This is a great place to start. You'll see what's due for the class. Typically in week 1, I'll ask you to do an introduction, which could be just a brief biography of who you are, introduce yourself to the class. And then of course you'll want to work on your first week of discussions. You'll see the due date here. You'll also see the availability of this. Typically I will preset some of these discussions ahead of time so that you can work ahead if you like. I certainly have no problem with you working ahead. And that's one way, by the way, if you have some travel coming up, because I open things maybe a week or 2 ahead of time, you can work ahead and not be penalized in the class. So actually an online class is pretty nice in that sense because we allow some flexibility on the front end before assignments are due, no flexibility at the end after they're due. Obviously if they're due and you don't make them up, it's a 0 for that assignment. The other thing is you'll click on quizzes, and after you do that you'll see, it's not actually quizzes but exams, you'll see the 2 exams when they open up and then the due dates. So that's another thing you can gain from looking at the Canvas site in week 1. And then another thing I really recommend as you start a class is use the modules. The modules will guide you through the class in the entirety. So you click on modules, you'll see, actually up here it's cut off, but you'll actually see getting started with the class. That's really the stuff you should look at prior to week 1 or around week 1, first part of the week. And then it'll get you into week 1. The reading for the week, the chapter objectives, supplemental videos, which are really good. I'll talk about those in a second. Discussion ideas, and then depending on your class, some of this will vary. You'll also see with every week's module, anything that's actually due that week, so a discussion post, and it'll typically have that at the bottom, I would say. If it's a midterm or a final, that will also be listed under the module. The module is a great place to start and to just continue your focus in the class because it takes you through sequentially from week 1 through week 6 or 11, depending on the length of your term of your online class. So I definitely recommend checking out the modules in week 1 and using them throughout the class. And also, I said a minute ago to use the supplemental materials. I'm including here discussion links that may be included in your class, information about discussion ideas, and then the links can also go along through the discussions. And then thirdly, any of the videos that are available. I often will have a video for every chapter in your textbook. That gives you an overview, gives you some sense of maybe what to focus on in that chapter for that week. So the supplemental materials could be a really good place to start. If you're new to the class, week 1, week 2, you're trying to figure out what do I write about, click on discussion ideas, click on links if those are available, click on chapter videos. That may actually give you a bit of a heads up to working on discussions for the first, let's say, a couple weeks of the quarter. And then the other thing is there is another level of redundancy here. So for every week of discussion in your class, what I try to do is below the assignment, so this is a sample class, week 5 discussions. It describes what you should do for that week. Again, this will vary with your class. So this is not necessarily specific to your class. It's an example here of another class. But then at the bottom of this, you'll see all that useful information. Discussion ideas, links for the chapter, any videos. And I typically do this all by chapter. So I have a set of links for chapter 1, maybe videos and discussion ideas. I also do that for chapter 2 and so on. Great place to start if you're unfamiliar with maybe what I should post for the particular week. So I really do recommend that. And again, you'll find that in your discussions just below the actual assignment. And that is it on the overview here for week 1. So again, I've set this video up hopefully giving you some insights about what you could do in this online class. By all means, if any questions come up contact me. You can contact me through the messaging system on Canvas or also through my yahoo.com email, which is listed on the syllabus. So good luck this quarter in your Lake Tahoe Community College Anthropology, Sociology online class, and I wish you well as you progress through the class this quarter.